In the heart of a busy African city, where tall buildings touched the sky and children's laughter echoed through the streets, there was a school called Sunrise Academy. It was a bright place filled with colorful classrooms, teachers who cared, and children who carried backpacks that bounced as they ran. But in that school, there was one boy everyone feared. His name was Thomas. Thomas was not an ordinary boy. He was bigger and taller than most of the other children in his class. He had a loud voice that boomed like a drum and a face that always looked serious. Thomas had a bad habit. He loved to bully others. Every day he found a way to make another child feel small. If someone brought a new toy to school, Thomas would grab it. If a child had a delicious lunch packed by their mother, Thomas would snatch it before they could even take a bite. And if anyone dared to complain, Thomas would puff up his chest, glare with his big eyes, and say, "Do you want trouble?" The children always shook their heads and stayed quiet. Thomas thought being a bully made him strong. He thought if others feared him, it meant he was important. But deep down, Thomas was a lonely boy. He didn't have friends. He only had fear around him. In the same class as Thomas was a small boy named Tosin. Tosin was quiet, gentle, and very kind. He wasn't as big as Thomas, but he was clever and hardworking. Tosin loved books and always helped his teachers. While Thomas spent his time looking for trouble, Tosin spent his time solving sums, drawing pictures, and sharing his snacks with others. Tosin didn't like Thomas's bullying. He often watched Thomas snatch toys or push children aside, and it made him sad. He wondered, why does Thomas act this way? Doesn't he know that kindness is stronger than bullying? There was also another child in their class, a cheerful girl named Amara. Amara was full of laughter. She wore bright ribbons in her hair and always sang songs during playtime. Amara loved peace and hated fighting. Whenever Thomas bullied someone, Amara tried to comfort the person after, but she too was afraid to stand up to Thomas directly. One Monday morning, the children gathered in the playground before class. The air smelled of roasted corn from the street vendors outside the school gate. Birds chirped in the tall trees nearby. The children played skipping ropes, clapped their hands in rhythm games, and laughed together. Suddenly, Thomas stomped into the playground. He saw a boy with a brand new football. The ball was shiny, red, and bounced perfectly on the ground. Thomas's eyes lit up. He marched over, pushed the boy aside, and grabbed the ball. "This ball is mine now," Thomas shouted. The boy's smile faded, and he stood helplessly as Thomas began kicking the ball around proudly. The children stopped playing and whispered among themselves. Tosin watched carefully, and Amara frowned. Tosin said softly to Amara, "This has to stop. Thomas can't keep taking from everyone." Amara nodded. "But he's too big, Tosin. He won't listen." The school bell rang, and the children hurried to class. But the new football stayed under Thomas's desk, as if it belonged to him. During lessons, Thomas kept bouncing the ball under the table, distracting everyone. The teacher, Madam Joy, noticed and asked, "Whose ball is that?" Thomas quickly lied, "It's mine, madam." The real owner lowered his head, too afraid to speak. Madam Joy sighed and continued teaching, but Tosin's heart burned with quiet courage. Days passed, and Thomas's bullying grew worse. He pulled children's hair, scribbled on their books, and laughed at anyone who made a mistake in class. Sometimes he even pushed Tosin, calling him "tiny boy." But Tosin never answered back. He kept calm, hoping one day things would change. One afternoon, the principal of Sunrise Academy announced a great sports day. All children would compete in races, football games, and skipping competitions. Parents would come to watch, and there would be prizes for the winners. Excitement filled the air. The children trained hard. Tosin practiced running every morning, while Amara joined the skipping team. Everyone wanted to win a medal. But Thomas had other plans. He told himself, "I'm the biggest and the strongest. I don't need to practice. I will win because no one dares to beat me." He spent the week boasting instead of training. He told children, "Don't even bother. The medals are mine." Finally, sports day arrived. The school field was decorated with colorful flags. Parents sat under canopies, clapping and cheering. The mayor of the city came to give out the prizes. The children lined up in their neat uniforms, their faces glowing with excitement. The first race was the 100-meter dash. Tosin stood in line, his small legs ready to run. Thomas stood beside him, towering proudly. "Tiny boy," Thomas sneered. "I'll crush you like an ant." But Tosin stayed silent, his eyes focused on the finish line. "On your marks, get set, go." The whistle blew, the children sprinted forward. Thomas started fast, his long legs covering ground quickly. But soon he grew tired because he had not practiced. Tosin, who had trained every morning, ran steadily, his arms pumping with determination. Step by step, Tosin overtook Thomas. The crowd cheered. "Go Tosin! Go Tosin!" Tosin crossed the finish line first. Thomas stumbled behind, panting and shocked. The medal was placed around Tosin's neck as Amara and the other children clapped happily. Thomas's face turned red with anger. Next came the football match. 2 teams were formed. Tosin was chosen as captain of one team, and Thomas insisted on being captain of the other. "This time, I will win," Thomas grumbled. The match began. Thomas played roughly, pushing players, grabbing the ball with his hands, and shouting at his teammates. But his team grew frustrated and tired. Tosin, on the other hand, encouraged his team. He passed the ball, cheered for them, and played fairly. The children enjoyed playing with Tosin because he made them feel included. When the final whistle blew, Tosin's team had won. The crowd cheered loudly. Parents stood and clapped. Amara danced with joy, singing, "Hard work always wins." Thomas stood alone, angry and embarrassed. By the end of sports day, Tosin had 2 medals. Amara had one from the skipping competition, and many children wore medals proudly. Thomas had none. For the first time, Thomas realized that bullying had not brought him strength. It had brought him shame. That evening, Thomas sat under a tree by the school field, his eyes filled with tears. He thought about how he had no friends, no medals, and no joy. At that moment, Tosin walked over with Amara. "Thomas," Tosin said kindly, "you don't have to be a bully. If you practice, work hard, and treat people with kindness, you can be great too." Amara added, "We all want to play with you, but not if you hurt us. Friends are better than fear." Thomas looked at them with surprise. For the first time, someone spoke to him without fear. He whispered, "Do you really think I can change?" Tosin smiled. "Yes, Thomas. Everyone can change if they try." From that day on, Thomas decided to be different. It wasn't easy. At first, he still got angry quickly, but whenever he felt like bullying, he remembered Tosin's words. Slowly, Thomas began to practice football properly. He helped carry books for teachers. He even shared his lunch once with Amara. The children were surprised. Some didn't trust him at first. But as the weeks passed, Thomas showed that he truly wanted to change. One morning, he stood before the class and said, "I'm sorry for all the times I bullied you. I want to be your friend." The class clapped. Tosin shook his hand, and Amara gave him one of her bright ribbons to wear as a sign of friendship. From then on, Thomas was no longer the school bully. He became a strong player on the football team, but this time, he played fairly. He became friends with Tosen and Amara, and together they showed the whole school that kindness is stronger than fear. And so, the children of Sunrise Academy learned a great lesson. A bully is only strong until kindness shows him a better way. Moral of the story: bullying never makes you strong, it only makes you lonely. True strength comes from kindness, hard work, and respect for others. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more African folktales, bedtime stories, and moral lessons that will make you smile, laugh, and grow wiser every day. See you next time.